learn what they are doing, and then implement those best practices. And one of the reasons why we have assembled here what I feel is most illustrious, luminous panel of speakers today with us. We are very fortunate to have with us. First and foremost, we have got Suzanne Vranica. She is one of the doyens of the marketing and advertising industry. She is the advertising editor at the Wall Street Journal. She was also instrumental in starting the CMO vertical on the Wall Street Journal web. And she has been one of the, as I said, luminaries in the field of marketing and from a journalistic perspective. And it's very interesting that today, normally she is the one who asks all the questions. So today, we are the ones who will ask her the questions and she will answer us. So Suzanne, welcome to you. I'm very grateful for your presence. Second, thank you. And second on the panel, we have got Harris Diamond, another luminary. And he happens to come from the advertising world, the agency world, where he is the global CEO of McCann Worldwide and a long-standing partner for MasterCard, of course. Therefore, I'm biased. But even if I put the bias aside, I think it's a great, great agency, which we are privileged to partner with. But equally, Harris is a phenomenal leader, and not just from a marketing perspective, but he gets the business of marketing. He gets the business of advertising. So and they have got some of the best brands out there as their clients, and would love to see what his perspectives are. So Harris, welcome to you, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Roger. We appreciate it.
And the third, and not the least, of course, is Stephan Loerke. Stephan is calling in, I guess, from Brussels. And Stephan is the CEO of the World Federation of Advertisers, also known as WFA. And being actually the association that represents the best part of the marketing community, literally, I think the membership of the WFA today has got probably, they control more than $1 trillion of marketing dollars around the globe. So they're a hugely influential body, not just from an influence point of view, but from a thought leadership point of view, which Plamen has been mentioning about. And he has got a very unique perspective because he is in constant communication with all the marketers. And they have, in fact, actually put out a brilliant compendium for COVID, how to manage through the crisis and so on. And they've done some amazing, amazing work. And I'm privileged to be associated with Stephan in my role as the president of the WFA. And Stephan, of course, is the CEO, and he runs the show on a day in and day out basis. So, Stephan, welcome, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Raja.
So, if I can just start off by questions. So, I'll start with you first, Suzanne. Probably this is the first major mega pandemic in the digital age. From your vantage point, and you keep talking to CMOs and marketers and CEOs all the time, do you think marketers are getting it? And are they dealing with it the right way? And can you give any examples? If you can share your perspective, that'll be fantastic.
Sure. I think they're getting there. I think it's a little uneven, but I think this thing took so many people by just surprise. And I think there's a game of catch up that's going on. So clearly we saw an instantaneous pullback of advertising spending, which is obviously to be expected. From a creative standpoint, you had marketers that were left flat-footed, right? They had ads out there that were completely tone deaf. So they had to scramble to pull them off. And it takes time to do that. So some were caught and criticized, but I think people got over it pretty quick. No one's, a few tweets on Twitter is not going to sink your business. Even a lot of them tend to not affect your business. I think what we're seeing now is a little bit of a sea of sameness, I would call it. Marketers are struggling, right? What is the tone? And if you watch any sort of media, as a consumer, if I take my marketing hat off, the one thing my observation is everything looks the same. And I think it's only because this was so quick and people were panicked. So we've got all these thank you messages, which are lovely, but it's a sea of sameness. You can't tell anything apart. You don't know what brand. I think it's going to take some time for marketers to get their footing. And clearly some are getting there. But I think I agree with you, Raja, that it's very important to do. if the only thing that a marketer doing today is changing your logo to basically promote social distancing, you are clearly not doing enough. And I think the brands that are giving back, right, the LVMH and the Anheuser-Busch that went and jumped into action and created hand sanitizers, that's something that a consumer will never forget. You talk about, we're so focused on purpose right now. That's real purpose, like giving something back. No one's thinking about, do I really need to buy a bud right now, right? Everybody's drinking. You don't need to advertise, So I think it's a little bit stop and start, but I think it's going to figure its way out. I think it's just more of the fact that a lot of people were taken by surprise.
Absolutely. And in fact, I think you hit the nail on the head, Suzanne, which is, it's not just being visible for the sake of visibility and do things which are cute and creative, but is actually truly doing something. Because on the one hand, when you talk to consumers, they're saying we don't expect the brands to go dark, but we want them not to simply show their ads or talk to us or talk at us, but to do something, to take a stance on something and do something, etc. And I think the point you make drives home that extremely clearly. If we can just turn to Harris for a second. So Harris, from your point of view, how are marketers dealing? You have got lots of clients, big, small, and medium. And from your perspective, how are they dealing with it? And are they learning anything from the pandemic? And what I would also like to get your perspective is, after this pandemic is behind us, and hopefully sooner than later, would we have learned something, and would we do marketing differently?
Well, let me start from the end of your question. I don't think there's any doubt at all that we're all learning a lot. And the reality is what we're learning right now is consumers are incredibly, now that people are at home, and we also have to take a look at the different continents. Everybody's in a slightly different place. Latin America's going into it. Asia is coming out of it. Europe is obviously in the throes, as is the United States. But the commonality of people seeking content, seeking information, willing to trust brands, questions about government, this seems to be worldwide. And when we take a look at the work we do in Truth Central, which fundamentally is oriented to understanding what consumers are thinking and their receptivity towards messages and what type of messages do they want to receive, we see a lot of change taking place with respect to how consumers are looking at this world. I think I would argue with both of you. I would tell you that consumers are still interested in receiving messages that are pertinent to their lives. They have to be meaningful, but they also can still be marketing. People have not frozen with respect to understanding that there are a variety of brands out there, lots of products out there, all clamoring and seeking attention. And the reality is, for most of our clients, the truth of the matter is, we are still focused on trying to make sure that their products and brands are actually understood as to what they're doing today, understood also as to the value that they bring to a consumer's life and the meaningful role it plays in those people's lives. And I would caution those who think that this is a time to pull back on marketing, that it's just the exact opposite in mind. Appropriate marketing right now is, I think, well received. The issue was always, what are people watching? Where are people receiving information? And clearly, out of home is fundamentally not necessarily the place you want to be when everybody is in their homes. But even there are opportunities to take advantage because of how the news shows are basically covering the crisis. When you think about what's taking place with respect to the news shows, you want to make sure you have content that's appropriate. A lot of pharmaceutical companies still understand who those audiences are. Worldwide, people are paying more attention to television in its traditional manner than we've seen for a couple of years. Opportunities for the networks and the TV producers and the content makers to understand that there is a sort of a return. But also, frankly, there's a lot of opportunities in the streaming and digital place. And so I would argue that today, more than ever, brands who have the right message, who are tuned to the moment, who are actually being able to demonstrate the meaningful role their products play in people's lives, I would be out there right now using the term marketing, but I would be out there right now communicating, and I would be basically telling the story. I think consumers want to hear it.
Absolutely. In fact, when you talk about messaging, probably in addition to the message itself, there is also something about the methods that you deploy, right? Like, for example, in my own personal situation, I'll just tell you how horrific some of the price gouging tactics some so-called reputed brands have been doing. Like, I wanted to buy a stand for my iPad for this very session. The cost or the price was $65. For shipping, they have charged me $211. I said, what? Like, this is unbelievable. And even if you were to go, no, so what does it do to me? So this is a company I buy it from many things most of the time. But when I see this kind of a practice, it breaks the fundamental trust that is there. Or likewise, when we were buying, there was a whole rush around buying the hand sanitizers and the wipes and the sprays, the disinfectant sprays and all that. So I went and ordered for one, just saw normal price, $6.99. And current price that I got it, $84. Mm-hmm. Now, it's like I'm helpless because, I'm freaked. I said, I need to keep myself and my family safe. What do? I don't buy it. I do buy it. Yes, I can afford it in this case. For $84, I went and bought it. But does it make me feel right? Absolutely not. And will I ever go back to these brands? Absolutely not. So I think in addition to the message, I think the methods are very, very critical. And what you touch upon is absolutely right. So thank you.
And in fact, Raja,
if you allow me here, absolutely, we're talking about one and only currency we have is the trust. And once we lose it, it's so hard to build and so easy to lose. I would like just to give a shout to all our viewers. I see currently 7,900 on our website on virtual.webit.org, and we stream also through our social media around. You can join. This is live. This is not recorded. This is a huge effort from all of us to be together. It's very easy just to pre-record something and just to play it. We are here with you. Use hashtag WEBIT and ask your questions over Twitter. And it will be my pleasure further to wrap up some of the questions and to ask this fantastic panel. Thank you, Raja. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Plamen. That was a good one. So, Haris, you're about to say something.
Well, I would say that there are two issues there. One is it's exactly what Ron just said. The lack and the break of trust is probably the most unforgivable sin that there can be in today's world. The tune, the attention consumers are paying to content right now means that it is a delicate line. And obviously the type of thing you're talking about, price gouging or making promises, a product that people fundamentally cannot find on shelves, or talking about things that fundamentally just do not seem pertinent to today's world. I think more than ever, consumers who detect that will fundamentally blacklist brands, and they should, and it would be appropriate. But I would also say that line with respect to credibility has always been there. The difference in today's world is we're more attuned to it than we have been in the past.
Yep.
So it's getting tone right, but it's also your credibility. And the interesting thing right now is when we look at our research, roughly 80 to 84% of public all around the world, different countries, it varies to be frank. China slightly different numbers than the US. US is slightly different than Portugal. But at the end of the day, the most trusted group right now is actually brands. And it says something that they are more trusted than governments at this moment in time. And so that integrity that people are basically putting in brands and what they can provide to consumers, this is a valuable, valuable thing to hold on to. And any company or product that basically sacrifices that, either by being tone deaf, not understanding the moment, they will pay a price long term.
As they should.
Look, yep. I think we've been this line about how, people want to be friends with brands and they want brands to be part of their life. I've covered this business long, probably longer than I care to even admit at this point. I don't think people wake up and say they want to be friends with brands. I don't really want to kiss and hug, Jif's peanut butter. I think those surveys that have been taken and are showing this just is really reflective of the lack of trust in institutions and government that people have. So I do think we should all step back from almighty brands and say, okay, does a consumer really want to be friends with me? No, they want you in this situation. They want you to give them something and not to be asked for something. And a great example came up to me the other day. I don't have a Peloton, right? my family, decided we all have gym memberships. So they're like, we should get a Peloton. I'm like, I don't really want a Peloton. The company all of a sudden opened up their app for free for 90 days. Now my entire family has been using the app to do all these workouts for free. And all of a sudden, I've now agreed with the family, because this brand is helping everybody cope with their stress, to buy a Peloton bike, right? These are the things that brands can do, rather than being like, some platitude out there. They're actually giving me a service. And in my mind, I now elevate that brand and think, oh, this is a smart company. They're taking care of people in an emotional, distraught time, giving us all a release, and they're going to benefit somewhere. I might not buy it tomorrow, because clearly, we're all trying to save money, just like your investors and your owners of your company. But I will definitely give back to the company. And I think that's what companies have to sort of learn from this. It's like, how do I serve the consumer rather than sort of peddle to them in this environment?
But Suzanne, I think there is an issue here. I don't think any of us think that we want to necessarily be a friend with a brand. I would agree with that. But I do think we want a brand to play a meaningful role, and the example that in their people's lives. And I think when you look at the meaningful role that Peloton just played to you, it worked. And I would argue that MasterCard does that. I would argue that RB does that with Mucinex. I would argue a Dettol around the globe. Most brands understand the distinction between playing a meaningful role in people's lives and being friends with people.
There's plenty of brands that don't get that.
Playing a meaningful role, I think, than what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, there is plenty of brands that don't get that. And I don't think that's for every brand either. Like, we don't need to have these kumbaya moments with brands out there. But when the going gets tough, more and more brands can move from a brand that didn't have that kind of relationship to a brand that can have that relationship now.
I would agree with that.
Absolutely. Let me get to Stephan. Stephan, from your perspective, how are marketers reacting or not reacting? And I think you have been instrumental in getting the whole compendium on managing through COVID. And if you can just give your perspective and what you are hearing, what you are seeing, that'd be great.
Thank you, Raja. I'd like not to fall into the trap of celebrating brands. I think many are doing the right thing right now, but I'd like to just put it a bit into perspective. Until the crisis struck, so as late as January this year, all the indications were that people all around the world were losing trust in advertising, marketing, and brands in general. The Edelman Trust Barometer in January this year was among the worst in terms of the buy-in of people into market economies and brands in general. And so we have faced issues around ad blocking, which has gone up. We've faced real issues of people simply walking away from marketing. So I just want to put that a bit in that context, in that background. The Corona crisis has taken many brands, most of us, flat-footed. We, as late as the end of February, early March, very few were predicting the lockdown as well as all its implications. And to your question, how are brands reacting to this unforeseen scenario, to this never-seen-before scenario? I'd say overall, although you can't generalize, the brand community globally is huge, but overall I've been rather positively surprised by the way brands have adjusted. It has taken them some time, but I think many of them, or certainly many of the most visible, have struck a tone which I think is adequate. One is they need to be humble. They are not central in today's environment. It's about much more important things than brands. It's about people's health and about society's resilience. They need to be showing empathy in the way they present themselves and what they have to offer. And they need to be useful. And I think we've seen brands, and Suzanne and Harris were referring to a few of those cases, which have struck the right tone. And I think that's very encouraging. And even in March, the latest Edelman Trust Barometer, which was run in March, picks up the fact that people are expecting brands to step up. So the majority of people trust actually brands and NGOs rather than government and media. And the majority of people expect brands to be taking initiative, stepping up in partnership with government. So this is not about either brands or government. It's about brands doing the right thing in a framework which is set by public authorities. And I think that is what the expectation is. And I think it could well be a big opportunity for brand owners to be turning around the inexorable loss of trust which we've seen in recent years, provided they understand that these exceptional circumstances, this crisis, is not going to be just a sequence which we will get out of in a couple of months. I'm profoundly convinced that what we're seeing here will have profound influences on the role of brands in the future and the expectations of people and society with respect to brands.
Got it, Stephan. Thank you very much. And I think very, very valid observations. Now, one question, follow-up question, I'll start with you and ask you. A lot of brands have been talking about purpose, right? And a lot of brands have been talking about, or companies have been talking about long-term. You also have got these statements made, in the long term, we are all dead. And you have to worry about how to survive today, how to thrive today. Now, from that perspective, has this pandemic changed in any, firstly, have some of the, in good times, everyone can mouth very profound, philosophically superior kind of a stuff. But when the crisis hits and when the situation that we are in happens, what will happen to that purpose? Are we still going to hold on to the purpose and then do something about it? Or we say, okay, fine, purpose was for good times, now we'll do it something else. I want to understand from your side how companies are looking from a purpose point of view. And the adjunct question for that is, do you see marketing sort of reconfiguring itself into the future? Because this is not the first pandemic, or this is not going to be the last pandemic either. And we don't know, hopefully the cycles will not happen quickly, but assuming that the next cycle comes, people will be all prepared and so on. So given that kind of a mindset, is it going to fundamentally alter marketing strategies?
Raja, the question is
to you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I think this is the acid test for marketing with purpose. We've seen marketing with purpose dominate the headlines of our industry for the last 2-3 years, and we've seen also some skeptics express, I think, sometimes legitimate concerns with respect to how deep and how genuine is the commitment of some of the marketing with purpose positionings of brands. And I think, this here is marketing with purpose on steroids. This is the moment where the real and authentic commitment of companies will be very visible. And I think there's nothing more tangible than to see the consistency in behavior across the board of a company, far beyond what is being published in the press or what is being shown on TV. It is actually the consistency of the behavior across the company which counts. I feel that the crisis we're going through right now is interesting in the sense that it brings humanity together like we've probably never witnessed in our lifetime. We had an annual general meeting at WTA, which you presided last week, where we had 63 countries on the Zoom, from Guatemala to Auckland, who are all confined. There's a sense of commonality when we talk with our Chinese, Brazilian, and South African colleagues like we've never had before. A sense that we have in front of us a challenge as a community, we need to be stepping up. And the other interesting thing in this crisis is it demonstrates the vulnerability of our modern society and how fragile this all is. And if I had to make a forecast or a guess for the future, is I think once we're out of this crisis, what we will have learned in the way we dealt with Corona will be incredibly important in us getting our heads around as an industry, around the consumption conundrum and the climate change debate. Because I think the key factors which we're confronted here with are fundamental factors also in that other big societal debate which will be waiting for us after the crisis, the public health crisis behind us.
Thank you, Stephan. Moving to you, Harris. The agency world in general, and I'm not talking about McCann in specific, but if you look at the overall agency world, to begin with, it was in a transformational phase with the digital media coming in, and they had to adapt themselves. Then the consulting companies were coming again, it was adapting itself again, and sort of plowing through, and each time coming out hopefully stronger than where it went into the crisis. Now, the current crisis, what do you see is the impact from an agency point of view? Have any fundamental processes been reset from your perspective of how agencies work with clients? So, for example, work hasn't stopped at all, fascinatingly. We have our interactions on a day-to-day basis with all your agencies, and we don't seem to have missed a beat. But I don't know if it is unique in one particular context and it's a biased sample, or what you are finding with your other clients, and from an overall industry perspective, what's happening in the agency world, and particularly as it relates to the client interactions and client models.
Oh, sure. I mean, the change that's taking place is impacting everybody from supply lines to marketing to employee relations. It's all over the place. But for those of us who are marketeers, and the 8,000 people or so who are on this webcast right now are obviously interested in marketing. Marketing's great forte has always been the probably surpassed ability to adapt. I mean, I suspect my predecessors were stunned, when we went from newspapers to radio, when we went from radio to TV, when we went from TV to digital or streaming. And now, of course, we're all learning how to basically work from home and receive information in a variety of different contexts, but fundamentally also use things like what we're using right now, Zoom, to have discussions, meetings, conversations, family gatherings, whatever it is. So when I look at it from a marketeer's point of view, change has obviously been accelerated with respect to understanding how willing people are to basically have conversations now with video conferencing in a way that we never saw before, how willing people are to receive content in methods and management that we haven't seen before. My own guess is if we look at the future, we'll see much more emphasis right now on customer relationship management. Actually having a relationship with a customer will be even more key, whether that is through all the different types of means that are out there. Clearly everything from email to videos to just B2B type of conversations that will take place. So there's going to be a tremendous change with respect to accelerating that which was already taken. And I think if we look at China, we had already seen their acceleration with respect to utilizing digital tools and digital means for e-commerce, for communications, for pretty much all of their lives. And we're now going to see that take place in Europe faster. We're going to see that take place in the United States faster, in North America. And I think it'll move into Latin America relatively quickly. The Mideast, which is right now struggling with some of the same issues and beginning to recognize the digital gap that exists over there right now and how to accelerate and basically make sure more and more people are connected to each other. So we're going to see a lot of acceleration with respect to how information is transmitted, how content is received. And then, to all of us on this panel, I think we're all saying the same thing. We're also going to recognize that the fact that COVID has changed how we communicate with each other. And I think there's hopefulness with respect to that change. I think people right now have a sense of solidarity. They have a sense of shared spirit. They have a sense of what brands and products can do and be meaningful in their lives. They also have a sense of what governments can do. And so I think there will be an opportunity for us to take advantage of that. And that will be everything from climate to, I think, global economic opportunity to all the issues that are going to take place between those who have access to those who do not have access. So a lot of change will take place, Roger, but more than anything else, it'll be an acceleration of change that was already in play.
Got it. Thank you, Harris. Suzanne, coming to you. You are one of the top journalists, most brilliant, and I particularly respect you for cutting through the platitudes and the pretenses and call out the BS and come to the bottom line very crisply. From your perspective, the question that I have got for you is, are marketers going to be marketing any differently coming out of this crisis on the one hand? And particularly areas like social good, areas like purpose, will they get reinforced when we come out of the crisis and be a part of it? Or will they sort of fall by the wayside? It's okay, fine, let the philanthropists take care of the causes and marketers have to take care of something else. Will it happen? Because just like you, for example, some of the articles that have appeared on purpose, for example, and how companies and brands have been purpose washing and doing something because it's more opportunistic as opposed to being something coming from the soul and as a guiding light and a North Star to the company. So the long questions for you, I hope you got that. Otherwise, you can repeat it. But What's your take and where do you see the world going?
Okay, so I'll break it down into two things. First of all, let's make no mistake about this. The virus is only the start. We are going to be ending up in what looks like pretty bad economic downturn. How long it lasts, nobody's to know. But what will that mean? Well, the issues that we're facing this business before are going to be exacerbated. You can sit here and you can tell everyone that study after study shows that you should continue to advertise during a downturn. I'm sorry, if you talk to any CFO in this country, they're basically looking at the marketer and asking for cash back. We are in a cash hoarding environment right now. One agency executive just literally yesterday said to me, CFOs are running marketing right now. Joe Tripodi, who ran Coca-Cola years ago, basically said to me a couple of days ago for a story, CEOs and CFOs see marketing as a honeypot. So I definitely think this is going to lead to some lean times. That's going to exacerbate issues, holding company issues, the in-housing trend that is basically accelerating. Marketers are going to be looking to save money. During the financial crisis, a major CPG company who was very ahead of its time in terms of purpose literally abandoned a lot of their purposes and went back to sort of, let's say, advertising that was very like customer driven, save money, and they pulled away from that. It's very hard to maintain purpose when you've got a CFO who's basically demanding every dollar back unless you can prove it. And as much as we've made a long road in getting there to prove this, it flies out the window when there's a recession. So I think we all should be prepared for there's going to be some new realities, and it's not going to be this lovely, the virus is gone, we're all going to go back and to the way things were. I think companies are learning on the fly to make creative even quicker. Ford basically made 2 of their crisis ads within a weekend, right? They went through their all of their images that they owned. They put it together. They made sure they had music that they owned, and the ads are amazing. These are lessons that they're not going to forget. So when they go back to taking 3 or 4 weeks and millions of dollars to create an ad, they're going to be asking these questions. Hey, let's find different, more efficient ways to work on these things. How many of us are sitting back saying, how many conferences do we all really need to go to? I think there's going to be a rationalization about all of the things that we should be doing differently. But so that's one part of this. I definitely think we have to keep our eye on the ball on how the economic turmoil that is left behind after this will impact every marketer.
If you allow me, Suzanne, Stephan, Haris, Raja, I feel so honored having not you, the professionals, but you, the humans in this panel. I heard so much. And what I have now, what is still there is we're not selling, we're serving. We are serving. If you allow me, let me do my part of the serving now with the people who are with us from all around the world, who are asking their questions, and they should be, at least some of them, hopefully answered by you. We have George Hendon from Melbourne, who is asking how long the new normal will last for brands to adjust. Do you think it will ever be going back to old? Who would like to answer?
Well,
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, look, I don't believe at all that fiction of going back in life, and I don't think we're ever going to be going back to how it felt before the Corona crisis. I think we are going through a very challenging time where the industry and society will be learning a lot, and I'm absolutely convinced that our future will look different than what it looked like 2 months ago, and I'm personally confident, although I agree with Susan that the recession will be bloody, but I'm confident that our industry and our society will come out stronger. It will be a painful process, no doubt, but I think what comes out already here after a few weeks is a sense of commonality, of solidarity, of shared purpose, of humility in our industry, which we haven't seen much in the past, which I think will be very important going forward.
Yeah, thank you. If you allow me, Raja, I have a question for you because I know that you're the right person to answer it. It's Maulik from Mumbai. He's asking, organizations and employees, how does the equation alter in the post-COVID-19 world? Who wins? Customer first or employee first organization's role of trust? Are employees' value proposition enough?
Right. So firstly, I think there were a bunch of questions in one question out there, right? So trust, we all spoke about it. It's absolutely mighty critical. And if you generate and sustain the trust through these times, you will have equity in your brand, in your company, in your product going forward once we come out of the crisis, whether it is 18 months down the line, 24 months down the line, or 10 years down the line, whatever. So that's number one. Number two, I don't think it's a trade-off between employees and customers. I would always say, unless you have got employees who feel safe, they feel secure, they feel enabled, they feel supported and well taken care of, you can never serve your customers adequately. So you have to take care of your employees very well. You have to reassure them. You have to really help them navigate through this crisis. On the other hand, if you don't have customers, you cannot support your employees. So for me, it is not employee first or customer first. I think it's both of them are preeminent to your daily existence in these crises and going forward as well. So that would be one point I would mention. I don't remember exactly what the other question was, other part of the question was, but I'll be very happy if anyone wants to shoot an email or engage me on Twitter. Happy to do it at Rajamannar. Let's have a conversation around these and more topics.
I would love to share after the stream. I would request the studio. We are all distant. By the way, I'm in the mountain. Raja, where are you?
I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. At home.
Susan, where are you?
I'm in Westchester, New York.
In New York. And Stephan?
I'm in Brussels, Belgium.
Brussels, Belgium. And Harris?
Connecticut, USA.
Wonderful. So we are all somewhere around the world. We have questions from Melbourne, Mumbai. Well, I have a couple of coming from different locations. Now, I'll ask one, which is from London. How should brands be prioritizing sports sponsorship during this time? And how will market react to this type of marketing coming out of the pandemic? How about Harris to answer that question, if you don't mind, Harris? Sorry for putting you there.
Well, it's obviously a difficult moment for sports. We have to recognize that live events like sports are something that brands fundamentally take advantage of. Great sponsorship opportunities, great enthusiasm, and traditionally great access. I think the reality right now is we still don't know what governments will do with respect to allowing us to once again gather in large groups. So the question will be live sports and whether or not they will have live audiences. And if you look around the globe and you take a look at what's happening with cricket in India, you take a look at what's happening with the British Open or Wimbledon with its cancellations here in the United States, how baseball is thinking about having sort of the team self-isolate in a state and then play to empty stadiums, it's an unclear moment. What I will tell you, having said that, is sports is still something that marketeers and the public, citizens, consumers all enjoy perhaps more than anything else. I do think you will still see sponsorships take place. I still think you will still see activations take place around them. We just have to recognize that in today's world, consumers and citizens are most fundamentally affected by the precariousness of their health and the precariousness of their financial situation. So even if we utilize sports, we have to make sure that the marketing messages that are associated with that recognize those two issues. And I think those two issues will actually continue, as I think we all feel, more and longer than COVID-19 will with respect to actually the crisis we're facing today. And so sports will still be vital, but at this moment in time, thinking about what those availabilities will be is a little difficult given the government regulatory process that's going to take place over the next couple of months.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Quick reflection on quite the long and endless tweets. Looking forward for more females of color of these virtual events going forward. WEBIT, Lauren, Delisa from New York, and DC and Paris. So she's obviously traveling around. Lauren, I would like to commit to you now that you would see diversity, and you see diversity. Actually, WEBIT was the first in Europe to support the No Woman, No panel. And now there is no single politician in the European Commission who goes to a conference without having at least one more woman on the panel. And diversity is, I believe, key for where we are now. Diversity, empowerment, and definitely now we more and more understand what the meaning of sustainability and resilience means. I wouldn't say I like that test. I wouldn't say I like that crisis. I say we see it more and more. So I promise you, because that's where our heart is. I'm a feminist here. So you can be sure that there will be of different color and definitely wonderful diversity. I have one more question because we have we're over past of time. I'm sure Raja maybe has something to add to this question. I'll leave it up to him because he's the host of that program of WEBIT Virtual. I'll shoot one more question here from the audience. There are a lot of, they're interested in, I had a question which says, what is the future of the luxury brands? I wonder if someone would like to take that and to answer. Stephan, maybe?
Sure. In short, I think
Paris, from the place of the luxury brands. You should know better than anyone else.
And therefore, I'm bullish on luxury brands. Luxury brands have always been subject to economic cycles, and this one is going to be no different. But I think luxury brands, whether that's in automotive or in jewelry or in lifestyle, have a unique role to play. Possibly even more important when the mood is down. It's interesting to see that as the Chinese get out of confinement gradually, luxury brands are actually seeing a boom in a number of categories. So they play an important role in keeping the spirit up.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, Raja, back to you. My request is your panel, our panel, maybe just last sentence each, because that's been a fantastic panel. I'm not going to take time to wrap it up because we are already 4 minutes beyond time. So please, back to you, Raja.
Okay, I think probably, since we had just 2 or 3 questions each and we have been fairly clear, and since I also have got a call I was supposed to dial in at noon, so I'm also in a hurry to wrap it up. But I only want to say to each and every one of the panelists, I think it's absolutely a privilege and an honor to have joined you on this particular call. And your perspectives are, as usual, absolutely incisive and very insightful. So thank you very much for that. And I have actually taken away as well a couple of points from this discussion today. So Suzanne, thank you. Stephan, thank you. And Harris, thank you very much. And Plamen, thank you so very much for pulling this whole thing together. And as usual, you do a fantastic job. And thank you very much. Take care, all of you, and be safe.
Thank you all so much. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. We say at WEBIT is a community of people with hearts. We don't say amazing professionals. We don't say one of the finest digerati in the world. We don't say all the policymakers. We have prime ministers, presidents being part of our global impact committee. We have so much pride, and I feel so honored to have Rajamannar, this amazing human being, being the honorary chair of the Brand Innovation Summit of WEBIT Festival, and he accepted and gave us that special commitment to be the host of the WEBIT Virtual Brand Innovation programs. I can't say how grateful I am. In moments like this, things happen. They happen. They just simply happen. You never feel in control, right? At the moment you feel in control, there is a sign telling you, hey, no more. You're not in control. All control is freaking control. And now is the time when the brands get back into control by giving the control, by becoming more human, as this panel said. And that's where we are. It's never been time like this when humanism was more needed. Because it's in the time of darkness when the light is where we follow. And I am so grateful to have these 4 lights with us today who shed their shining thoughts and hopefully empowered many of you. All these brand owners, marketeers from all around the world who were with us. We currently have over 7,000 people with us. And as Raja promised so generously, as he always do, he's one of the most generous person I've ever met in my life. You can tweet at him. You can tweet at all our participants. Their Twitter profiles on our own website. You have our contacts. You've registered for this event. So if anyone wants to know something, we're here for you. We all can do many things, but we want to be with you. That's why we did WEBIT Virtual. That's why we did WEBIT Virtual, to be together. And we did it because it will be a waste of impact if we don't go after our dreams. It will be a waste of opportunities if we don't support the innovation ecosystem. And that's what we do. You know that WEBIT is committed to empowering the ecosystem, to making the ecosystem stronger. And we're hosting the world's biggest startup challenge with $1 million award, with over 4,500. And we're all there again. We do it virtually now. Because, as you know from the WEBIT website, we postponed. And we shall postpone it until we are 100% sure that there will be no threat to anyone of our global community. Over 800,000 people received the email with invitation to this virtual show. And there'll be more and more coming and working with us on making the next steps, going in the new normal, whatever it is. It will be great because it will be made by great people. That's what really matters.